What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to a pupil of Conquer BJJ out there in Ada, Oklahoma, and a victorious fighter as of 2 weeks ago. But I mean, we're we're still here. So you're still a winner to me. He is the one and only Keagan Davidson. Keagan, what's going on, my man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure to have you, man. And it's cool. I first learned about you guys in Ada from your roommate, your your gym brother, when Jeffrey Johnson, good
hmm
dude. And as soon as he posted, like, oh, we won, and Conquer BJJ and Keegan Davidson, I was like, I literally was like, "Can I get him on?" So this is cool. Thank you for doing
Oh
this.
yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's definitely something new that I've never done. So you always got to venture out of your comfort zone.
Well, I appreciate that. And Jeffrey Johnson says, "Hey, my guys, what's up, my guy? That that dude is amazing." And you guys there at Conquer BJJ. Again, so I mean, I'm out here in California, and there's nothing like really going on in terms of fight wise, and interviewing Jeffrey, you, you you made me aware. He made me aware of what cool things that you guys are doing there at Conquer BJJ, and people were chiming in the chats and everything like that. And it seems like a good, I mean, a really good and solid group. And the fact that, my goodness, like a great MMA, world class MMA talent happens everywhere, and that's what you guys are forging there at Conquer.
Oh yeah, it's this sport is definitely just rising and continue to rise. And everybody at our gym, we're all so close. We punch each other on the face on Fridays and turn around and hang out Saturday. I mean, we're constantly doing something, with each other. It's a pretty great gym.
No, it's especially right now, and I mean, we'll address that elephant in the room. It's election day, and people are like, "Oh, you don't like this," and blah blah blah, and whatever. And at times like this, I feel like people should have a little bit more of like combat sports in their life. They should take a striking class. They should take a jujitsu class because that's kind of the nature of the business. Like we handle our
Mhm.
business, we sweat, cry, bleed, unceremoniously bend limbs in different positions, and then
Mhm.
we go have a beer or a bowl of acai or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's just like that's it, but then also you could see the quality of people that you're around because like if somebody, let's say if you're drilling something and somebody kind of digs an elbow there or kicks you in your kneecap and whatever, and you're like, hey, if this person does this when nobody's watching, what will they be out in public when people are watching? So I probably won't
Mhm.
hang out with that person.
It's definitely crazy because somebody like if you're outside of the sport looking in, you won't understand how respectable people in these kind of martial arts are. It's mind blowing. I know I was super surprised whenever I first entered the sport on how respectful and how loving the people that do this are.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I mean, my favorite fight of any fight, whether it be local, amateur, pro, whatever, is right after that final bell rings and the coaches and the fighters, they're all getting together and
hmm
hugging. And sometimes you even see like cross training in between gyms and like
hmm
beautiful things. And it's just like, because that experience is so visceral and so static that no
hmm
one else is going to be able to understand what you
hmm
went through in that fight than the person standing across the cage from you or the ring from you,
hmm
and it's just like,
Exactly.
how can you not be friends with them or have some semblance of a relationship afterwards?
For sure. That's like, after my fight, I wasn't expecting him to like, hey, good job, you're one hell of a dude, hell of a fighter, And it's definitely it humbles you, and it humbles everybody around you. It's just it's an amazing feeling.
No, it is, man. I can only imagine because I mean, I'm without being like the referee and an official, this is obviously pre-COVID. but I
Mm,
was pretty close to the action, and you could just feel the energy radiating. And again, it's nothing like anything else. There's no extracurricular activity or maybe
mhm,
liquid courage that you can do
mhm.
that would really compare to the thrill of the crowd, the live crowd.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm telling you, that walkout, it gets you so pumped up, man. Just having everybody scream and cheer for you, and it's it's amazing. You know, you step in there and you just feel like it's definitely a feeling that I would hope a lot of people want to try to experience, because once you're in there and it's shut and you know it's go time, and then you can just feel everybody cheering and yelling like something special is about to happen.
No, 100%. And something special is Chris Reed says, my boy Keagan. Shout out to Chris. Uh, yeah, man. So, uh, obviously, there are, I guess, easier ways to make a living, right, than getting punched in the face. So, what
Mhm,
brought you, especially when you were growing up in Sulphur, Oklahoma, a small town, right?
mhm,
And what made you decide to kind of enter into combat sports? Because I mean, Oklahoma is known for its wrestling prowess. So I mean, did it
mhm.
start there, or was it something else that drew you in?
Yeah, it actually started about my sixth grade year. Um, Before that, I was just a little skinny, dorky kid. You know, I played basketball and I wasn't any good at it, you know. And I remember the one thing that drove me away from basketball really hard was I was sitting here on the 3 point line and somebody had passed me the ball and I was wide open. And I go to shoot it. And one of the kids' parents that was on my team from the crowd just yells, "Don't shoot that!" right as soon as I let go. And I airballed it. And they benched me for the rest of the game. And I knew right then, hey, this sport is not for me. So from there, I went and joined the wrestling team, which I was JV and I wasn't any good. And I just remember thinking, man, this is a tiny room with a lot of people. It's about 100 degrees in here. I'm sweating and it's awful. But, with just like anything, experience and time, you start to pick up and grasp more things with the sport. And so, from about my sixth to eighth grade year in junior high, I maybe won a handful of matches, and which luckily I had a good coach at the time. His name is Drew Swartz. Um, he just kept on me, no matter how much of a pain in the ass I was. He was just on me, on me, on me all the time. And so, whenever it came to about my freshman year, that's whenever I really started to peak and see the progress and to the work I was doing. And from there, I ended up like back to back conference champion my junior and senior year. I don't think I ever lost a home dual match, and I ended up being a state qualifier my senior year, and I all stated, and it was something that I really fell in love with, you know, I really did. And after I had graduated and moved on, I had some offers to go to college and wrestle. It wasn't nothing big, but it was something. But at the time, I was more worried about getting a job and making money. And so I kind of put all the dreams I wanted to on the back burner. Well, as I was going through my jobs, I ended up working in the oil field. I didn't really have a whole lot of time to do anything. Well, then I get an offer to actually go and coach Little League Wrestling at Sulphur. And man, that is something I wanted to do. I wanted to be a wrestling coach because I looked up to my wrestling coach. And so I didn't really have the opportunity to do it for the high school or anything above that. So I was like, hey, this is a step into something that I want to do. Well, a few years go down and I'm feeling like I'm missing something. I quit coaching and I'm just working and I'm feeling like I need to do something. Like there's a hole inside of me that I need to fill. And I remember Cortez Coleman had came into my wrestling room when I was still like junior high school. He had came in and got some work in. And And I was like, hey, I know he has a gym or something in Ada. Let me check that out. And so one day I just messaged Conquer BJJ on Facebook and was like, hey, what do I need to do to get in there? And they took care of me. And, here I am. And that's where I found, Jeff and like you've seen, just commented Chris Vereen. I mean, just the greatest people I've ever met.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's amazing. And Jesse Velasquez, who himself is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt and an IFS MMA champion here in Southern California, he says it's all about that grind wrestling. Or we'll teach you that. That is awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Oklahoma is one of the best states for wrestling for sure. Yeah, I would say Oklahoma, and I would maybe even like obviously the eastern seaboard of the United States, and then
Mm-hmm.
Dagestan and Russia,
Oh,
those
yeah.
kind of three pockets are where you're going to get like world class wrestlers, and it's just crazy because I mean, literally like location wise they're like hundreds, I mean like thousands of miles away from each other, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean it fits, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's some of the stuff that I would love to see. It's like, what would Danny Hodge versus Habib's father, what would that look like? That's what
Mm-hmm.
I do like in my like day-to-day life. Like, what does Carl Gotts versus like Eddie Bravo look like in EBI
Yeah.
rules? Like, I'm just weird like that. Just weird,
Mm-hmm.
weird. But I mean, again, you wrestlers, man. I mean, and that's the reason why it kind of invokes this kind of fanaticism, if that's
Mm-hmm.
anything, because like again, the wrestling is so great, and what you guys can do, it is amazing. And I mean, we even see it. We mentioned like Danny Hans, but Jake Hager, who just won at
Mm-hmm.
Bellator, he's out of Oklahoma as well. So I mean, the Briscoe brothers, they're, Oklahoma is just like, in terms of wrestling, it almost doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely, you know, it's a crazy thing to think about. Oklahoma known for its hardcore wrestling, and it's great. It's good to be known for that because if you come to Oklahoma, there's always going to be people that's going to grind, that's going to give you the work. And it's one of them sports to where you have to have dedication. You have to, or it's going to eat you alive. You're not going to be able to stay in the sport long if you're not strong-willed.
No, 100%. And it's funny because like uh wrestling to a large instance, it's a lot of dedication, and like I don't want to say like no reward, but like when you think about
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, maybe Kurt Angle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, growing up in Pennsylvania, different scene, but I mean, growing up and then you want to go to the Olympics, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
Olympics, for all intents and purposes, if you look at the International Olympic Committee deal, like for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, if you like wanted to trade in one of your medals and just kind of give it back, like you get a buck, right? And it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
NCAA where like they make tens of millions of dollars on a particular sport, but
Mm-hmm.
the athletes themselves don't get a lot of money, right? And that
Yeah.
is the pinnacle of being a wrestler. But
Mm-hmm.
again, in terms of you can't work a regular job because again,
Mm-hmm.
you're wrestling for 12 hours a day, a lot of times 8 to 12 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
and your diet has to be a certain way. So there's a lot of sacrifices and a little reward. And I think that's what kind of coaxes a lot of other people out of it. But again, when you get those elite level wrestlers, or even like again a region like Oklahoma and the Midwest, like that
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, are ardent wrestlers, and I mean, it's just like you're going to see a world class competition regardless. You can go to any junior high, elementary school, high school, NCAA affiliate, and you're going to get like the best wrestling around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anywhere you go in Oklahoma, I mean, if there's a gym, you know they're gonna have some shoes on, ready to double leg you.
No, that's great. That's great. Now, I mean, transitioning from a obviously, an athlete from a different field, playing basketball. And I love that you have that seminal moment where, like, you heard somebody kind of psych you out and you're like, hey, I don't think I want to do this anymore, right? And you pivoted, right? But I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, basketball players are conditioned differently than wrestlers, right? So, talk to me about like the warm ups and drills, coming from one sport to another, and thinking you're
Mhm.
like physically fit. I'm young. This is good, whatever. And then going to wrestling, where like, I mean, you're holding another your teammate and like flipping, and you guys are
Yeah.
flipping each other and rolling and whatever. Different type of conditioning. So, what was the biggest like change in just mindset and like ability from one sport to the other?
Oh man, it was the biggest thing was the consistency of how hard you were working. Like in basketball, you can stop, dribble, kind of walk, kind of go at a little different pace. But in wrestling, you have to condition yourself to be able to go at whatever pace you or your opponent set. So, I mean, if you're feeling like, hey, I'm going to take it easy on, this match, kind of let him make the moves and I'll play it off that. Well, sometimes that's not going to work, and so there's times where you have to up the tempo, you have to go. So it's consistently, your cardio, but not only that, but your body cardio. How long can my arms go? How long can I stay in my stance? If I need to, move this way, can I? A lot of muscle memory, and it was mentally draining at first because there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. But then you finally start grasping it. You finally get that strength built up, that muscle memory, that mindset of, okay, now it's go, 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 go. You can't stop, or you put yourself in that position. And it was a huge transition. It was completely something that I wasn't not necessarily ready for, but something I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
What was the particular, whether it be a series of training moves, in training, or just anything? Like, what did you despise the most? Because I know, like, I was in ROTC. I know
Mhm.
anytime that we had to like duck walk, and again, that's a
Mhm.
different conditioning kind of exercise, but I was just like, I hated it.
Mhm.
I hated it. So, what was it for you that you were just like, man, we're doing this? I know I have to, but I don't want to.
Oh yeah, it was definitely the after practice cardio for me. Like we would start up, we would go run, a trail 3 miles ish around there. We'd take off from our wrestling gym from the high school. There's a trail in Sulphur called the Buffalo Trail, and we'd go run that and run back to our gym. And then we would start our warm ups, our stretches, stuff like that. And then we would practice for a solid almost 3 hours. Then after that, we would condition even more. And so from there, we would run and kind of do the short explosive stuff. So like, I don't know, I don't know what it's called, but it's like you have three people in a line, and the dude on the left will jump over the dude in the middle, and then a roll. The dude on the right will jump over the dude from the left, and you keep going.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, every time it killed me. The after practice cardio was the worst for me. Working on your abs and it was rough.
It is, but then, I mean, when it all works out, and you're like, you wake up with a six pack, and you're like, okay, this could be cool.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the earliest part when I first learned, you got to trust the process. It may suck now, but trust me, it'll work out in the long run.
Absolutely. And Jesse saying that wrestling for sure the most physically taxing martial art, and yes, it is a martial art. I mean, that boxing, it's a martial art. It's something that you definitely have to put your time and work in to kind of develop, and
Mm-hmm.
if you don't do it, like you said earlier, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the
Mm-hmm.
results that you need.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you can't expect, take a few private classes here and there and expect to just be good at it. That's one of the things you've got to grind. You got to get whooped. You got to get whooped. You got to get whooped. Then maybe one day you'll come in and whoop somebody, and then that's whenever it all starts trickling downhill, and you've got
No,
it.
100%. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and that I guarantee you that it was played into some of your experiences, your early experiences at Conquer. But we'll get to that. Jesse says that sprints suck, leapfrogs also suck, and that's what you got
Oh
into
yeah.
that leapfrog and roll. Yeah,
Oh
man.
goodness. That sucked the most. I know. I remember there was one time. I think it was regionals, and I was maybe a freshman or a sophomore. I came in to the tournament, and we had maybe an hour till weigh-ins, and I was like 2 pounds, something like that, over. And my coach, boy, he was not happy about it. He was not happy about it at all. He made me leapfrog from one end of the stadium to the other, and just made me keep doing it till I could have burned it off. But oh my goodness, it was awful.
Oh, that's brutal. That's brutal. To which Chris Vereen says, being a gangster ain't easy, but it's great. So there you go. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't agree with you more. Now, you were talking about after, high school, you getting into the oil fields, right? And then discovering Conquer. So how
Mm-hmm.
much time in between, from your last like wrestling meet to when you entered Conquer, like how much time had elapsed in between?
Well, my last time I wrestled was my all-state tournament, and that was late 2014. And then I had just joined the Conquer team earlier this year.
Wow.
And so it was like a long gap of something that I just felt like I was missing something in my life. Just that competitiveness, that thrive, that combat, it was just something inside of me was just felt like it wasn't right.
No, and that's the thing, and especially when gyms started to close this year, and a lot of them are still closed, nationwide, internationally, and what have you. That is the thing that gets said by a lot of practitioners. Is like it's a mental health thing. Like you feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's almost a death in a lot of respects, and especially if you train a grappling, whether it be judo, wrestling, sambo, catch wrestling, jujitsu, right? There's no training that you could do on a bag, right? There's no, socially distanced. Like you got to
Mm-hmm.
be in at close quarters, again,
Mm-hmm.
sweating and everything. So, um, explain to me that like the loss that you were feeling in between the what 6 years almost.
Yeah. It's just there's something different about any kind of martial arts. You can feel it in Brazilian jiu-jitsu or boxing or wrestling, and it's more the fact of I didn't feel like I was testing myself like I used to. I felt like my motivation was gone. I didn't have anything to really like push myself instead of just, okay, it's time to wake up at 6 o'clock. Let's go to work, and I got tired of being the the guy that just goes to work, goes home, and is lazy. I mean, of course, I would work out every now and then, uh, but it was like I'm not doing anything. You know, there's something with being on the mats, being in a hot room, and there's something that just makes it feel like it's home. That's where you're comfortable, and you know that was really bothering me for a while. And finally, one day I just woke up and I was like, this needs to change. Whether that be if I need to find some kind of freestyle wrestling tournament to where there's an older age group, something. I need to find something. And then it just so happened, like I said, that I had seen Cortez come into the gym whenever I was younger, and I was like, hey, maybe that's my fix right there. If I can call him, maybe he's got some mats I can get some work in. And here I am.
I love it. And Josh Nail says cardio is king. Wrestling is the best foundation for sure. You're not getting any arguments out of me. That is absolutely it. I love wrestling through and through. Yeah, so that it's amazing. Now it's kind of crazy because you were making pretty good money in the oil fields,
Mhm.
right? I mean, a 6 year career and all that, but still something is missing. That again, it it proves that it's not about like a money thing or anything
Mhm.
like that. There's something once you find those mats, right? And again, this I think the funniest thing is, regardless if you box, there's mats, there's
Mhm.
canvas. If you do jujitsu, if you wrestle, if you do sambo, there's mats in it all. Karate. mats,
Hmm.
taekwondo mats, right? So when you first hit those mats, like it's something that almost totally engulfs you. It consumes you like nothing else, right? And not in a
Hmm.
bad way, but it's like you find yourself, right, in many
Hmm.
respects. And it proves, in a lot of aspects, when people choose to take up martial arts or MMA, a lot of times they're actually taking a step down. Like Shane Carwin, most famously, was an engineer, still is an engineer, and he did that, and moonlighted as a mixed martial arts fighter, ended up becoming a interim heavyweight champion in the UFC. But again, sometimes you kind of regress a little bit in life
Hmm.
to kind of fill this void that basically becomes after you leave it.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if it's something that you're really, wanting to do, then you're gonna make it happen. I mean, and that's with anything. It doesn't even have to be with combat sports or martial arts at all. If it's something that you want to do and you really truly enjoy and love, then you're gonna find a way to do it. And it took me a little while to figure out how I was gonna do it or where it was gonna take me, but I finally found it, and this is something that I love. And I recently, whenever I first joined the gym, I actually got thrown into gi jujitsu, and it was a complete different feeling. But luckily, out of going there, I realized that there are some wrestlers there, so just like Josh Nail and Chris Vereen, they're both tremendous wrestlers. And so whenever I figured that out, Kate or Chris Vereen was like, "Hey, you're a wrestler, right?" I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Okay, I can't wait to try you out, see how you feel." And I remember there was one day I came in and him and another guy were wrestling, and I unfortunately didn't bring my shoes, and he would not let me hear the end of it. He would not let me. He was giving it to me. He was busting my chaps. And then finally I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get some shoes. And after I got shoes in and we all started wrestling, man, I fell in love with it all over again.
I think that's incredible. And, I mean, getting thrown into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, gis especially, right? I mean, to
Mm-hmm.
some, that'd be like, oh, of course, you're a fighter. You fight in MMA, you do Jiu Jitsu, you're a wrestler. But it's so different, right? I mean,
Oh
because
yeah.
as a wrestler, you try to avoid being on your back because when you get
Mm-hmm.
pinned, that's just one slap of the mat, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's no way that you're getting turned, right? And
Oh yeah.
that's essentially you have the most power in jujitsu from your back, right? Whether it be gi or
Mm-hmm.
no gi. So, what was that like fundamental shift for you? I mean, that had to be kind of weird, right?
Oh, I still haven't figured it out yet, honestly. Uh, but whenever I first started, it was real bad because I didn't understand the concept of, hey, you can grab the gi, you can choke people out with it, take people down with it, you know. And so it was like a big thing to where we would, slap hands and start rolling, and you just grab my lapel and just, what are you doing? And it was just like a completely different ball game. And it took me back like 3 steps. And I hated it. I hated it. I'm like, man, I cannot figure this out. Like, this is not where I thought this was going to go, you know? And I'm talking, I would try to, and it's crazy because wrestling is like go, go, go. But then, jujitsu, it's like, hey, slow down, kind of like work around your opponent. Don't move them, And so there would be times where I would try to shoot in on a beautiful double. And then next thing I know, I've got my gi wrapped around my neck and my face is purple. It was insane. Insane how crazy and fast it happened. I'm like, I am just getting my ass whooped right now. And I'm
Yeah,
like, what is happening? And then, like, I'd go roll with somebody else and I would be caught in an armbar or I'd be caught in a Kimura. I'm like, this is just not working for me. And then so finally, I got to the point where I kind of understood it. And then I met my other coach, Brian Gurnell, and he does no-gi coaching. And when I found no-gi, I hopped on board. I just fell in love with no-gi because I don't like the fact of the grabbing. That's just not for me. You know, I'm more of a no-gi kind of guy. But
Yeah.
I guess you got to get comfortable with getting your butt whooped every now and then to get better at it, you know.
Oh, 100%. And Dylan Dolzal says still doesn't like gi. Still
I'm
doesn't
not
like gi.
I'm not lying to you.
No, 100%. And it's weird, right? Because so for me, I only own one gi, and that is Elio Gracie 100. It's like a special gi with Elio Gracie on the back of it because, like, the year that I started jiu-jitsu was literally the 100th year commemoration of Elio first starting to train in Brazil, right? So, with that all being said, I was just like, that's the only gi that I'll ever own. But unless I'm, you know, wrestling somebody with a overcoat, it may not work. And especially the first time that you get Ezekiel, right, with the lapel. I mean, an Ezekiel is kind of rough anyway, right? But you get it with the lapel, and especially if the person, your training partner, may not have the best hygiene problem. I mean,
Yeah.
solutions, and they, it's a double diamond weave gi, and it goes and rashes against your forehead as he tries to, and you know, it's not fun. It's not fun.
Oh
I
no.
get it, but it's not fun.
Well, it's degrading whenever, somebody undoes your gi and then chokes you out with your own gi. It's something about that. It's like, oh, whoa, let's take a step back because I don't know that one yet.
It's fucking demoralizing. Like, you might think you're hot shit, and then you just you walk in and you get choked out with your own coat, theoretically speaking. For the non-MMA fans, it's like you walking into somewhere in a petticoat and somebody choking you with said petticoat. It's just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You could be a boxer, you could be a taekwondo, and somebody chokes you out with your own like heavy petticoat. You're like, what in the hell are we doing?
And it's funny, because I had the hardest problem trying to break guard, and trying to pass guard. And so one day I finally did it, and I'm looking around like, hey, when am I going to get my blue belt? I just passed guard. And everybody was like, well, good job, And it's crazy.
Oh, that's great. You're like a pest guard. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
There's no stripe. I don't get a stripe on my belt. I don't get a blue belt. Like, oh, man, I remember. And funny enough, Jesse and I are actually teammates, but 2 years removed, right? Because I've been training about 2 or 3 years, and he is now at the gym that I used to train at. And essentially, I remember one day somebody was up for their blue, right? And the coach Savant and Heinrich Wasmer, who's fought for the Combate and Bellator, they're like, hey, Woods, if you tap this person who's going to get their blue, we'll give you a blue as well. And I was like, oh, right. And then at first I went like killer, killer, killer. And then I was just like, I feel like a douche. Like this person's worked their way, been with this gym 2 years, done the work and whatever. And here I am trying to like make a name for myself off of his name. That's a douche move. And right as that thought went into my head, I got choked out 9 ways to Sunday. Like they had to kind of like wiggle my legs and everything. He just like rear naked choked and it.
Oh man, and it's crazy because there's so many ways to get choked out, and I've probably experienced 85% of them, and it's just rough, man. It's a different ball game, it really is.
Yeah, and they call it the euphemism of that there's levels to this ish, but there definitely is. There is 100%. And Jesse says, I hate rolling with people with horrible smelling gis and rash guards. There are so many. Now, see, the rash guard, if you have a smelly rash guard, like that is just like, I get, some people may not have a washing machine, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
gi, and if you're training like, twice a day, you might throw
Mm-hmm.
it in the washer or whatever, or, hand dry it or whatever. But like, if you got a smelling rash guard, like there's almost no excuse because you can wash it in the sink of the gym, hang it
Mm-hmm.
up, and if your coach allows it, you know, hang it up outside of the gym. And if you come to night
Mm-hmm.
class, it'll be dry. Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
it, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
put some like armbar soap on it and whatever, and you'll be good. Defense soap and whatever, right? But like, I kind of get the gi, but I don't get the no gi like rash guard smelling. Like that's talk about disrespect. That's disrespectful.
Oh
Good
yeah. I
ladies
mean,
and good sirs of this podcast, please wash your rash guard.
yeah. I mean, I've never met somebody with a nasty rash guard, but boy, I've smelled some pretty rough geese. It's just like, hey, dude, you got me. Like, you win. Okay,
Oh
how
yeah,
you
it's
want to
a verbal
roll?
tap just on smells.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. You can tap me within 30 seconds. If your geese smells that bad, you know, we get up
No, that
close to each other and you smell a little funky, then nope, we're not
and it's
rolling.
and it's not just the smell. It's like you're breathing. I mean, somebody literally has their body like on top of you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just smushed together, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to breathe. You have to breathe. There's no
Oh,
like,
I have to.
yeah, and you breathe that. Uh, uh, I mean, and even if they try, right? Let's say like they didn't dry the ghee all the way, and you smell that
Mm-hmm.
hint of mold. And Jesse says facts, 100%. You smell that hint of mold, and you, whatever, and then you're in my
Mm-hmm.
head like, okay, mold is airborne. I just breathe this in with air. Do I have mold on my lungs? Am I gonna have black lung after this? Like black mold on my
Mm-hmm.
lungs? What the hell are we doing?
That's whenever that true fight or flight mode kicks in, you know. You better get off me, Stinky.
We're not talking about anyone in particular, but if that's you, go ahead and wash your ish. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. No, dude. So we got to talk about this fight. I mean, obviously, you joined Conquer earlier this year, and so theoretically speaking, this is your first fight under the banner.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. Rage in the Cage.
Oh man, it was crazy. I've only been actually in the gym for 5 months, training and doing all this, and I did have a fight lined up, but it was against another opponent. But he unfortunately had to back out due to some broken ribs, and so they were trying to find me another opponent, and then luckily they finally found me one, you know, and with me being a wrestler, I was like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, well, here he comes. He's going to get taken down. That's what he's going to shoot a shot. I don't want to be known as that person. So the whole fight camp, I was like, man, I'm going to come out there and we're going to stand and bang. That's what's going to happen. And, that's how I had it visualized throughout the whole camp, and even in sparring and live rounds, I wasn't shooting a whole lot of takedowns. I was just trying to stand up and work boxing, kickboxing, everything I could. Well, then it comes time to actually do the deed, and man, we step into the cage, and within the first few seconds, he comes at me, flurries me. And, luckily he crowded me and I just level changed and I was able to take him down. Well, I was like, this was not the game plan at all. Was not the game plan. So I'd already taken him down, and he ends up creating a pretty good scramble. Well, we stood up, and in my mind, I was thinking, here we go. We're standing and banging. This is what we're doing. And so I stood up and I put my hands up, and right before I knew it, he lands a straight 1-2 right down the pipe, and boy, it rocks me. And at that moment, I realized, that famous saying, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. Boy, I clenched up. We went down again. It surprised me. His striking was definitely, I don't know if he was more comfortable or what, but yeah, his stand up was a lot better than what I was expecting it to be. And, at the end of the day, I ended up winning by submission in the second round to arm triangles, but it definitely opened up my eyes on how rough it can be.
No, 100%. And Josh Nail, to your jargon, says you looked right at home with that deep double leg slam. 100%.
Oh yeah,
There.
for sure, for sure. Like I ended up shooting in on I think I slammed him like twice, and while I was down there, I was just thinking like, I really don't want to let you back up. He was so long, and I was just like, I've got you here. I'll be damned if I let you back up.
Man, that's crazy. Now, I mean, you finished by submission, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know. I want to know. Did you look back at your coaches and be like, "Yo, where's my blue belt?"
uh, hey, I was in there, and I just remembered, there was some things I was talking to myself, which is super weird because I was like, Coach Brian said knee on waist, didn't go to mount, and so like I was just making sure my knee was on the waist the whole time, and I was like, I better get at least striped for this, something, and it was a great experience, it was definitely something for the history books for me.
No, 100%. I mean, and Jesse says like when you're in the cage, especially in your first fight, all of the nerves that comes with it, you know what you need to know. But in your case, that was wrestling, and you used it, you exploited it. Why the hell not?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And the nerves, man, the nerves were actually crazy because before we walked out, they took us up in an elevator, and it was me and the guy I was fighting in the elevator. And then we finally walked out, and we walk out and we're waiting. We're just side by side. And my coach was like shaking me down. My coach, Brian Grinnell, he was shaking me down. He was like, "Hey, man, stay calm, stay relaxed." And I kept thinking, I was like, why are you massaging me? Which I'm not complaining because it feels good, And so he's sitting there massaging my shoulder and my neck and everything, just telling me to relax. And everybody was telling me to breathe. And I go out there and fight. And then after the fight, he goes, "Dude, you know how tense you were before you got out there?" He said, "Your shoulders were up here and you were just wide eyed." And I was like, I didn't know that. I thought I was just doing fine, But I guess I was so nervous.
But it's crazy too because look at this year, right, where everything is kind of weird, right, and you enter right this gym after believing that you had something missing. There was something missing in your
Hmm.
life, and you knew exactly what that is. And you entered Conquer, and within the year of you starting training there, you're taking a fight. Like that
Hmm.
is pretty damn incredible.
Oh yeah, it was definitely awesome, and I gotta thank my coaches, Cortez Coleman, Brian Grinnell, and the guys that were in my corner, Jeffrey Johnson and Tommy Schultz, for believing in me that much, for training for 5 months and letting me take a fight, and then those same guys being in my corner when I did get a fight, and man, it was a great feeling to know that everybody was backing me, and we had two other fighters, fight that night, and they did tremendous jobs. May have not gotten the results we wanted, but hey, they went out there and they fought hell of a fight, and I couldn't be more proud. And just the amount of support we got was extremely, extremely incredible.
I love it. And I mean, talk about support system. Jeffrey says he went through the motions of that takedown with you as you
Oh,
did it. Like,
yeah,
that is
I went.
great.
I went back and he was in my corner, and I went back and watched it. The first takedown I did, I kind of pushed him off the cage and picked him up. And you just see Jeffrey in the corner right outside the cage. I go to lift him up, and you just see Jeff just stand up with me. Oh, it was the funniest thing. It was like he was about to take down the ghost outside of the cage. It was hilarious.
I wonder what the ref was thinking. It's like you look over here and you look over there, like, Is this some kind of hoodoo? Is they controlling which one is the puppet master? Like what the that has to be
Yeah, it
great.
was it was funny because I didn't know anything about it at the time, but then the more I go back and watch it, yeah, it was funny because you just see me attack at the legs and come up. Then if you watch him and me at the same time, you just see him come and stand up with me. Yeah, it was the funniest thing ever.
Oh, well, I'm gonna. Habib Nurmagomedov says send location. I want you fine gentlemen to send link. This is something I gotta see. I definitely gotta see. I want to see this. Um, Now, obviously, getting that first one in right.
Mm.
That's got to be incredible. But I mean, do you and your coaches have an idea of like when you want to start back in the cage?
We haven't really discussed it. I've been taking a little time off, just relaxing. But there's still a lot of things that I need to work on. I feel like before I even try to get back in there again. But it's just one of them things. We got to take it as it comes. We'll see, depending on how we feel, and then take it from there.
And that's not a bad idea, considering again, 6 months ago, you were working in the oil
Mm,
fields, not training at all, and it had been a 6 year layoff, right, from anything
mm,
combat sports, right? And you take a fight
mm,
and you win. I mean, not by decision. You finish. You and
mm,
I think it's amazing, especially. I mean, you ended up submitting your opponent. You kind of
mm,
the weird part in your game. I don't want to call it the Achilles heel because I'm sure
uh,
you're great at it, but I mean something that you still are kind of cultivating, right? In terms of your
mm,
MMA prowess, and you win by that.
mm.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in. I mean, theoretically, people don't take fights even here in California where there's fights every weekend. People wait it out like two
Mm,
years. Like that
yeah.
happens, like two
Mm,
year whatever, and then yeah, coach, I'm ready, or the coach says, yeah, you're ready, right? So you taking it
yeah.
in 5 months. I mean, even if you didn't take a fight for another 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, you're right on track. Like
Mm,
it's not a problem.
mm. Oh yeah. I mean, I came into the gym and man, whenever we would spar, dude, I was getting whooped day in, day out, and it was like I'm never gonna figure this out. Cause I didn't have any kind of boxing or anything like that, and so I'm coming in these guys and that are just whooping me, man. And then finally, it gets to the point to where I can kind of hold my own, but I'm still not winning rounds. And then it got to the point to where I worked on how comfortable I was with my stand up with the people that I was going against. And me and my little group of people, we would kind of go off and do a little cross training at different gyms, and found out there that I'm a little more comfortable than what I thought I was. And then finally, once it got to the point to where I was comfortable with my wrestling and then also comfortable with my stand up, that's whenever I took, I wanted to kind of like, hey, let's see how this is working, And I talked to my coaches, and within the next day, I had a fight lined up. So I mean, it was pretty great to know that hey, they believe in me.
Oh yeah, that's incredible. Again, to have have the respect of your peers, right, and your coaches. That's, I mean,
Mm,
whether it be wrestling, whatever. I mean, even in life, right, when you've got your colleagues to kind of respect what you're doing and everything, it's the greatest thing in the world.
I mean, it definitely is, especially your friends that they definitely hold you accountable. That's one thing I'm grateful for within my friend group. They definitely hold you accountable with what kind of work you put in. If you're slacking, hey, they'll tell you you're slacking, or they just give you that motivation. Like Chris Breen said, everybody wants to be gangster, but it ain't easy. So whenever it's time to get that work in, it's time to get serious, and we do a pretty good job at buckling down and doing the things that we need to do to be great.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, speaking of things that are great, right? As you are developing in your own mixed martial arts career, is there anybody past?
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, you have a great team there at Conquer BJJ, but I mean, is there anyone else in terms of MMA, past or present, that you either admire or look to emulate?
Well, to be honest with you, I never really actually got into watching, any kind of UFC or Bellator. So I've never really known any of them guys, until after I joined the sport. And so one of the two biggest people, well, I guess there's three that I really look up to and admire in the MMA game right now. And, there's obviously, Chris Vereen, he was like the one guy that was almost my first fight I've watched, and so that dude, man, he's doing big things, and he's going to continue to do big things, and he's definitely somebody I look up to in this game.
And then who are the other two?
Then we got both my coaches, Cortez and Brian Grinnell, and them two, they have two different styles, but both of them are great in their own way, and so all these guys that I've come to know that fight, these are the only fighters I actually really ever knew. And so, coming into this, those are the guys that I look up to, and those are the guys I compare myself to, as growing as a fighter, or a MMA practitioner.
I love it, right? Because and that's what I always love to answer. I mean, ask the question of like why and who are the influences, because they're so different, right? Because like
Mm-hmm.
there are folks that have loved the sport since 1993, or loved it since like Vale Tudo and No Holds Barred, and tough man competitions. And then there are people like yourself that are just like, I just need an outlet, right? I just need an
Mm-hmm.
outlet for the thing that I used to do that made me feel whole. I want to help feel whole again, right? And then you take a fight,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Mm-hmm.
again, in terms of like if you play MMA math, right? You're like, oh man, that person might not finish their opponent. They're more timid, and especially with that interaction with like your coach and kind of saying that you're so tense and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of those things, you were like, oh, that person might get a decision. He might lose, all of these things, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you might be a lot further along in your career than somebody that has watched their entire life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
knows all the names and everything like that. So there's no like right, and that's what I love about the sport. There's like no right way or wrong way to do any one thing. Obviously, I mean the wrong
Mm-hmm.
way is like, you know, when you spar and you just like taking shots and everybody's like bobbleheading and everything like that. That might not be the best thing for you, right? And I'm a pro wrestling fan too, so I look at things like a bump card. Like there's only so many
Mm-hmm.
bumps and slams that your body can take where it just says,
Mm-hmm.
F you guy, we're not doing this anymore. Like, and the same thing with, especially with what we're learning about neurological stuff and CTE. If you look at your brain in terms of like that bum card, there's only so many shots you could take to your head. Are you going to do them in the gym,
Mm-hmm.
or where it matters in the fight where you could actually hit pay dirt in terms of
Mm-hmm.
either winning a title or fighting for a big promotion? Like, why are you, the same amount of hits happening?
Right.
It's just why are you going to
Mm-hmm.
expend them here when nobody's looking and nobody's paying you versus doing it
Right.
here? Yeah, but I mean, it's just fun where like again, everybody has a different mindset about an approach to doing MMA and
Mm-hmm.
learning and everything like that. And I find it fascinating.
Oh yeah, it's definitely something that it's easy to fall in love with once you start any kind of martial arts, and I think at first, the biggest thing driving me was whenever I said I was going to start trying to fight in MMA, you know, the people who said that I couldn't do it, that's what was actually motivating me. You know, like people that thought it was funny or like, hey, you know, you're going to let me know when you decide that you're going to go out there and get your ass beat and blah, 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 you know, stuff like that. And so that's what drove me at first. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do this, you know, we're going to see what happens. And then finally, you know, as I started getting more serious about it, it was more the fact like, hey, you know what, why do I care what you know, other people are saying, or, you know, what other people would think about, you know, this journey I'm trying to go on, you know? And so once I started hanging around the group of friends that I have, man, everything started to really look up for the better. You know, I really started getting more confident. You know, I had way less, you know, naysayers in the bunch. And then so finally, you know, whenever I, you know, actually pulled out the W, it added more to it, you know, a little more sweetness to the victory. And whenever, you know, I did something that most people wouldn't do.
I love it. Now, speaking of sweet, right? Obviously, I mean, you were a wrestler, so you know about cutting weight, right? So
Mm,
that was a cinch this time about, right? But
mm.
what did the post weigh in and then post fight meals look like? Was there a go to, or especially when you were cutting weight over the course of the weeks leading up to the fight? You're like, oh damn, I'm driving that by that one place and I can't eat it, or damn, you know,
Mm.
mom's makes a good whatever. Like what were the go-tos in your post weigh-in and then post fight meals?
Oh man, I know post weigh in, we went and got some sushi. That's what we went and did. But boy, I can't remember what restaurant we went to, but man, it's like they made homemade sriracha, and I couldn't sit down for a while, man. It burnt me up. I didn't know how hot that stuff was gonna be, man. I went through maybe a sink full of water. That stuff was hot. And then
Ooh.
post fight, man, we I think we ended up staying for the main event of the card, and then we went and ate IHOP. And nothing gets better than IHOP at 2 in the morning.
100%. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
IHOP and Denny's, like you are the real MVPs because again, when you're in a drunken stupor, regretting your decisions of the
Mm-hmm.
night, yeah, man, you just drown your sorrows in carbs and syrup. Mm-mm-mm.
Mm-hmm. And chocolate chip pancakes have a way of making the soul happy.
It's just like, oh, my inner fat boy has like commenced for this one moment. Like,
Oh yeah.
right, yeah. Oh, and then the sushi. What's your go-to?
Oh man. I don't even know if you'd really call it sushi. It may be like the fake sushi, but I'm the believer of the California rolls.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. That's my go-to.
you're not gonna get any arguments from me because I mean I live in California. I was born here, so no. And I mean, if it's not like you were eating one of those, like how they have the
Mm-hmm.
displays, they have the plastic sushi, whatever. It's not like you were
Yeah.
eating that. It's not fake because,
Mm-hmm.
again, you actually ate it, you consumed it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying. But oh, dude, have you done tempura?
No. All right, maybe I did.
Okay.
I think we had the tempura chicken. I think we had some
Yes.
of that.
Oh my gosh, like the tempura, like even tempura vegetables, which is like
Mm.
it seems so contradictory, like deep fried vegetables. But I mean, if you've ever anywhere, there's deep fried everything, right? And tempura
Oh yeah.
batter, oh, it's so light, so crispy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I mean, that's my recommendation to you. I mean, if you can either get it by itself or in sushi,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely hit up the tempura. You'll thank me later.
I'm definitely gonna have to now. I'm
Hell
gonna give it a
yeah.
review, and if it ain't, if it's not good, we're gonna talk again.
Oh
Talk
yeah,
about giving me
oh I'll
something else
invite
to
you
eat.
right back on the show. Hell, we'll even do this like while you send me that DM like, yo, we're doing this or whatever. We will go live at that moment. I will do a play by play. I got you, my man. Don't even trip.
start
Don't even.
start a tempura review page.
Hell yes! Why the hell not? Keegan tastes everything. I'm just saying,
Oh
like
yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, Joe Rogan was on Fear Factor. We can have fun with this. I'm just saying.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and Jesse is part Japanese, right? He's half. He's a he's a Mexi- he's a Jalapeno, I guess. A Jalapeno. He's Mexican and Japanese is what I'm saying. So yeah, he says fools be hating on California and tempura rolls, but they are fire, 100%. Those are
Mm-hmm.
I, and you can tempura everything. I feel like so. Again, you got to check that out. And like I said, you can thank me later. But speaking of being thankful, right? Because there have been
Mm-hmm.
a legion of supporters, Conquer BJJ and beyond, right? That have helped you secure that victory a couple weeks back, and just your evolution, not just as a fighter but as a person. So I would love for you to get some shout outs and acknowledgments out of the way.
Oh yeah. I mean, I want to give, obviously a big shout out to, Conquer BJJ and everything that they've done for me. And then while also kicking in the past, I want to thank, the Sulphur Wrestling Organization for everything they've done for me and my coach, Drew Swartz. Everything they've done, or he's done has definitely made me a better person. My coaches, Cortez Coleman and Brian Grinnell, they're awesome coaches. The dudes that drive me, we got Chris Vereen and Jeff Johnson, those guys, amazing people, and I'd also like to thank my two beautiful kids. They drive me as well. My parents, just it's it's crazy how many people you have in your life that that you're grateful for.
I love it. I love it. But again, it takes a village, and every bit of the way to have somebody to kind of sit down and speak peace to you, to speak, breathe knowledge into your being. It's eternally grateful, and again, that when you win in the cage, and I'm not just talking about like literally how it goes, but just
Mm-hmm.
entering the cage, regardless of how the outcome may be, you're a winner because again, you are challenging yourself in a way that literally 90% of the population worldwide
Mm-hmm.
would even do.
Oh yeah, and it's just one of them things. You got to be a little off in the head, to be able to, put yourself in a position to where you could get hurt, but you could also hurt somebody. But at the end of the day, it's a sport. You know, it's just like anything else.
No, 100%, 100%. Now, to continue to fight, I mean, to follow the life and times and career of one Keegan Davidson, where can people find you on social media, my man?
Oh man, you can find me on Facebook. Keegan Davidson. You can also find me on Instagram. I think it's like Keegan 96 or something like that. You know, but other than that, I don't really have anything else on social media.
Hey, if that's what you got, that's what you got, man. Ain't
Hmm.
no, ain't no gripes here, man. The Twitter machine, especially today, it's kind of weird.
Hmm.
So, you know, I advise everybody to kind of, I mean, if you want to connect with people, connect with people. If you want to bash
Hmm.
people, not the time. Just stay off completely. I'm just saying, right? Right? We all
Hmm.
need to be together.
Oh, for
Like
sure, for sure.
100%. And this is and Jeffrey says we will work on social media. So there you go. There you go. Well, I told Jeffrey like we'll do this together. Like we're all in
Hmm.
this together. So whatever help you guys need, hit up those DMs. I'm hard to find according to Woods on literally everything, and that's where you'll find me. And podcasts like these, which I warmly encourage you guys for sticking with us here at According to Woods. And if you haven't already done so, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to According to Woods. But just don't take my word for it. Keagan, you're subscribed, right?
Oh, for sure. Who isn't?
Excellent. Yeah. And I mean, just don't take our word for it. I mean, listen to Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe.